All right, Pop. So I'm going to interview you about our family history and your experience with language and stories and teaching. So, what is your personal preference as far as listening, speaking, writing, or reading? Which do you feel like you excel at?
Well, I don't know as I'm necessarily a public speaker, although I've spoken public most of my adult life as a teacher and worker in the Department of Education. But I do not know if that's my thing that I'm particularly strong at, is being a public speaker. I enjoy reading and learning knowledge. My family thinks I have a little flair for writing, which I guess I can communicate fairly well in writing. But I'd like to listen. I like to hear what stories people tell. I like to be able to hear where they're at, where they're coming from, and how maybe I can help them if they're looking for help. I think all four areas are areas that I do take seriously, but I said I equally adapted all four.
Why did you choose to become a teacher?
I had an outstanding student teacher in agricultural education when I was in high school in Finger Lakes, New York. And when I went off to college at Cornell, I ran into this guy and he just said, "I really think you would be a great ag teacher." And his words of encouragement and what I saw in him and the ag teacher I had at the high school where I went to school in New York made me want to be an ag teacher. Want to be a teacher, what I may be able to teach students. I heard the expression from a teacher of education one time that said that he was a molder of dreams, and in a sense, I said I kind of saw myself as, yes, what I can teach and teach these young people to do with their lives, and that I could help them mold their dreams to become the people that they would someday be outstanding citizens and taxpayers of their community, and represent themselves well in public, and strong community family persons.
What do your students remember about you now that you're retired?
Well, I've heard various expressions from some of them. I think I taught them something. Sometimes I wondered. Sometimes I think they caught more than what I taught. I think they sensed that I cared about who they were, and I was the adult that I think oftentimes that during the school day, many of them seemed like that they were eager to get to my class at the end of the day. I think they almost all students I think I had a fairly good relationship with, and I said many of them I'll still have connection with years and years later. I think a lot of them depends on their home situation. That I said I think they look to me for advice in that, in school or otherwise. Stop over at the house and ask about things and that if they didn't feel comfortable talking with a parent or whatever. So since I retired, I think things that probably were students would say they remember some of my sayings as much as anything else.
So, what are some of your unique deisms that you use?
Well, one that always got kids excited was when we were practicing or rehearsing for banquets and things. I'd always tell them to line up alphabetically according to height, and they'd look and be a little bit befuddled to know exactly how they lined up alphabetically according to height. I thoroughly enjoyed teaching parliamentary procedure, and I think it's fairly accurate to say that the one area of importance when we did parliamentary procedure and we created teams that competed in parliamentary procedure, I used the four, I guess, S words in that. I said stand up, speak up, shut up, and sit down. And I think that seemed to resonate with the students. And that I said, okay, you've got something to say, stand up, speak up, and then you sit down and shut up. And I said, a lot of students seemed like they remembered that long after. The other off times, I said, in the public speaking end of things, I said I remember introducing a young man at a church function, and he was up front and his knees were knocking together, and I thought he was more nervous than I was, and I made the comment in church that I said this guy made me more nervous than a prostitute in church. And my daughters and my wife kind of ducked under the pew with that comment, but it certainly reflected what I felt about the young man that was trying to speak. So that one there oftentimes, probably too often gets used in that, but I think it pictures things well as far as picturing a prostitute in church. So that's just a couple of the ones I guess I remember, and the students would come up to me and they'd start quoting some of these that I would say, and as oh yeah, and I said my kids heard it lots of times, so I said they roll their eyes, but the kids, they seemed like they chuckled, whether it was just to be polite or whatever, but they would repeat them to me years and years later, so I guess that's something that stuck with them.
So when you became a teacher, did you alter your language compared to what you had spoken as a boy from New York, farm boy, and who had gone to college? But when you actually became front and center in the classroom, did you change the way you spoke?
I don't know as I did a whole lot of change. I said I think there was some students that might have had a little trouble understanding. I didn't think of myself as having an accent, but plenty of them seemed like they had trouble speaking in the English I was familiar with. That they would give expressions and that, and they didn't finish the sentence. They would use expressions like if there was work that they had to do, they'd always talk about there's more